Hello, Ignite, and welcome to the May Mini Flow. Our focus on the blog in the month of May has been hip openers, the various benefits of them and different poses that you can use to really help open up and stretch those hips. We spend a lot of time sitting, whether that's sitting in a car, sitting at our desk at work, sitting on the couch watching television. And so those hips, along with a lot of our leg muscles and some of the muscles in our back, get really, really tight. And so a nice hip opening sequence can really help to stretch things out. You might find that some of these also help with some low back issues and then sciatica issues and things like that, if there's things that you suffer from as well. In general, just really good for stretching that whole part of the body out. So we're going to go through a mini flow of all hip openers. So this is not a typical flow class, even for a mini flow. We're just focusing solely on hip openers. So take it easy as you're doing this. If your hips are really, really tight, it doesn't have to do this whole entire flow with me. It's about 15-20 minutes in total. You certainly can use other props and things to help you out, and I'll demonstrate some different modifications of some of these poses as we go. But as always, just listen to your body and take breaks when you need to. This is a mini flow that you can do in and of itself, or you can incorporate things from it as a part of your regular practice at home as well. So hopefully you find something that works really well for you and get those hips nice and open. But to start, we're going to begin in a nice, comfortable seated position, whatever that looks like for you. Try and find those sits bones, get them connected to the ground beneath you. Nice, tall spine, shoulders relaxed down away from the ears. We'll relax the arms in our lap. Palms can be down, palms can be up, whatever's most comfortable for you. We'll take a few moments just to get kind of centered and grounded here for the practice, and then we'll get started into our hip openers. So if it feels comfortable, go ahead and softly close your eyes. Just begin to come into your body, drawing your focus inward to the breath. You might choose to follow the breath at the tip of the nostrils, feeling that inhale and exhale move in and out of the body. Or you might choose to follow the movement of the belly. Feel the rise and fall of the belly with the breath. Whichever draws your attention is fine. Just stay with the breath. And allow each exhale to be an invitation to relax the muscles in the body. Softening all the muscles in the face. Letting the arms be heavy. Relaxing the fingers. Feel the body sinking into the floor as those sits bones connect. Relaxing the buttocks, the knees, and the feet. Just really relaxing into the breath. Letting go of everything that you're holding on to that's not serving you right now. Let's take a nice deep breath in. And then we'll sigh it out. Again, just releasing some of that tightness and tension in the body. On our next inhale, we're going to sweep the arms up. We're going to reach those fingertips straight up to the sky, lengthening almost as if you're trying to reach up and touch the ceiling. And on our exhale, we're going to fold forward. We want to hinge at the hips, let the arms come down to the ground, and let the head, neck, and shoulders, the torso just completely relax. You may not have your head touching the ground. We're just folding forward as far as we can. If you want, if it's more comfortable, you can get a block and maybe have that there for your head to relax on. Or not. We're not going to be here very long. So it's just, again, just letting the body relax, whatever is most comfortable. And as we're here, we're breathing into the low back, the hips, the buttocks. Feel that stretch. Two more breaths. And then we'll slowly walk ourselves back up, come back to that seated position. We'll start with our butterfly pose. So we're going to bring our feet together right here in front of the body. bottoms of the feet together, sliding the heels as close to the body as you can, and then you're going to wrap your hands on either side of your feet, just kind of cupping your feet, sitting up nice and tall, and our knees are falling out toward the side. And in my case, my knees are not touching the ground. My hips are too tight for that, and that's totally fine. I'm just letting them out there. I'm going to feel a stretch in my inner thighs. I'm just relaxing. If I want more stretch, I can lean forward a little bit, resting my forearms and elbows on the insides of the calf muscles. Keeping that spine nice and tall. And just breathing. And then we'll inhale ourselves up. And you could always stay longer in these poses. Again, this is a mini flow, so we're limited on time, so I don't stay very long in any one pose, but you certainly can stay longer if you'd like. We're going to move into cow face pose. So in yin class, if you've ever gone to a yin class, we talk about this being shoelace. It is basically where we are trying to stack our knees on top of themselves and our feet are going out in opposite directions. So I've already brought my right foot back here by my left buttock, and I'm going to cross my my left leg over the right. Again, trying to get the knees stacked on top of each other. That may not happen. So wherever they are, if it's, you got one leg out here, that's totally fine, wherever it is. And I'm just kind of walking this foot over here. And you can kind of play with that. We still want the sits bones connected. This can be pretty intense. So if it is too intense, this bottom leg can come back out straight. So if it's way too much, we'll take one side at a time. But if you can, we'll keep both legs bent, sitting up nice and tall, relaxing the shoulders. Again, you can stay here for as long as you want. For our purposes, we're only going to be here just a short while. And we'll stretch the legs out, uncrossing. And I always like to take a little shake in between, stretch both legs out and shake them out a little bit, maybe rock them a little bit from side to side. And we're going to do that same thing now with the opposite legs on the top and bottom. So now my left leg is going to come back first, and it's going to be the bottom leg, and my right leg's crossing over. And it's most likely that you're going to find a difference from side to side. This side's a lot harder for me to get into this pose, so you can see my knee is not as far over as it was on the other side. So that's okay. It is where it is. And we're just, again, just settling into the pose, checking on your sits bones, relaxing the shoulders, and again, a couple of breaths. And just like on the other side, if this is too intense, this bottom leg can be straight as well. That's always an option. And then we'll uncross the legs and again, shake them out. Okay. We're going to make our way into our tabletop. So coming to hands and knees, I'm actually going to pull a bolster in here because I'm going to utilize that. We're going to come into our pigeon pose. So pigeon is sort of, I think, the one pose that everyone thinks about when they think about hip openers. They'll think, oh, pigeon pose, that's a good hip opener, and it certainly is. And so we're going to practice that a little bit here, and I'm going to show you some alternative ways to do that. And then we'll get into some other poses, a few standing up and a few on the ground again. So I'm going to start you from tabletop. I know some folks do this from downward facing dog, and that's certainly okay too. If that's your preference, you can pop up into downward facing dog and come into it from there. And I'm going to start from my tabletop. And so I'm going to start with my right leg coming forward and my left leg being the one that's going to extend back. So I'm going to bring my right knee forward, and I'm going to be kind of twisting the leg so my shin is coming up towards the top of my mat here. In a perfect world, my shin would be parallel with the front of the mat. But that means my hips are super loose and flexible, and that is just not the case for me. So my shin is on a little bit of an angle. I'm going to look back and make sure that left leg is straight behind me. Another option, and this is where I want to use the bolster, for those who maybe have really tight hips, you can start up on your knees with a bolster, not a very high bolster, one of the thinner bolsters preferably. You could take a blanket and fold that up a few times, and that would work as well. But I'm going to step my right foot in front of the bolster. Slide it here and get it in position. And then what I'm going to do is kind of walk my foot over to the left side of the mat. And then I'm going to lean forward and let that shin fall down. And what this bolster does is really helps me to keep that shin more parallel with the top of the mat, a little bit more straight. Now that may be too intense if you're really, really tight. This may not be, now especially with the bolster, it's a little more structured so it doesn't give. If you're using a blanket, it might give a little bit. If your heel's pulling back and pushing back, it'll give a little bit more than the bolster does perhaps. But it's a really nice way to help to train your body to get into this pose with that straighter shin, if that's something that you're close enough to getting at that it's available to you. All right, so those are some options for getting into your pigeon pose. So I'm gonna remove the bolster, come back into it on this side just for a moment. Again, not staying in these poses too long. So upper body, in your royal pigeon, your chest is puffed out, your eyes are facing forward. You can also come into reclining pigeon or sleeping pigeon. You might have a pillow, a blanket, or a block to rest your head on if it doesn't rest comfortably on the floor. Oddly enough, this is the position that I get in whenever I have low back issues. I find that this is the best stretch for my low back. So we stay here for a few breaths. Again, you can decide how long. And then if you're in sleeping pigeon, we'll come back up, get to our royal pigeon, and then sliding back. I always like to take a little child's pose to kind of stretch that out. I know some other folks like to just do some leg movements, like rotations of the hip, going in both directions. Really anything that helps to stretch that out. And then of course we have to do the other side. So we'll come into the same pose now, bringing the left shin up here to the front. And again, recognizing that each side's a little different. So you may be more flexible or less flexible on this side, and you just adjust accordingly. One other option that I did not, see if I can reach my block, here we go. I did not show you on the other side that I'll show you here. Since this is the side that's up and you can actually see it better here. You can also place a block or bolster, a folded up blanket, that sort of thing, to support this hip if it feels helpful to do so. All right, and again, you can have your royal pigeon, you can take your reclining pigeon. This is definitely a tighter hip for me, so I cannot straighten my leg in the front like I can on the other side. So I have to make some modifications from one side to the other, and you certainly can do the same if that's helpful. And then we'll remove any props that we might have, walk ourselves back up, slide that left leg back. And again, whether you want to do a child's pose, or stretch the leg out. I know some people like to pop up into downward facing dog as well, and just do some different movements to kind of straighten that out and stretch it out a little bit rather. All right. We're going to come up into Trikonasana next, our triangle pose. This is a standing pose that is a nice hip opener. So I'm going to get up off the floor and invite you to do the same. For this pose, you can use a block. You want to use that to support your hand as we go down into the pose. I will bring one with me just to demonstrate that when we get to that point. We're going to stand with our feet a little bit wider than hip width apart. All right, so they're just a little bit wider, not the widest stance and not directly underneath your hips, just a little bit wider. I'm going to start with the left side. So I'm going to take my left toes and I'm going to turn them outward. Oh, there goes my hip popping already. Usually this is one pose. My hips tend to pop when they really open up in this pose. So my toes are now facing out on that left foot. My body, my torso is facing forward. My arms are going to come up in a T formation. So arms are extending out from the shoulders. And I'm going to reach over to the left as far as I can. I'm going to drop that left hand down toward the leg, and I'm going to reach my right arm up. And this is where the block can come in handy, because you can have that block on the inside or outside, depends on what feels best for your body. You can also keep the hand on the leg as well, whichever you prefer. The most important thing is keep that right shoulder rolled back. We don't want to start rolling forward. So that means you're up here a little higher with your hand, that's okay. And then when we're ready to come up, we're just going to engage that core and inhale. Bring it up. Relax the arms. Move my block over here. Pivot this left foot back. And sometimes it's nice to shake that out a little bit. And we're going to come into the other side. So we're going to take this right foot, turn it out, torso forward, arms up, reaching over to the right as far as we can. Drop the right arm, lift the left arm. Again, settling in, using the block if that's helpful. And just keeping that left shoulder rolled back. And observing one side to the other. This is definitely a side that's better for me with this stretch, but you might find that there's not much difference for you, or you might find there's a significant difference, just noticing. Use that core to inhale up. Relax the arms, turn that foot. Just kind of shake that out a little bit. All right. These mini flows go so quickly, so we're going to move down onto the ground. One final pose, and then we'll get into a very brief Shavasana. So you can also do low lunges. You can do lizard pose. That's another one that we could do. There's tons of them. Even some of the warrior poses, warrior 1, warrior 2, where we're extending those hip flexors, really can help as well. But we're going to come into happy baby to finish ourselves out. So we're going to come down on our backs. Bring those knees in toward the chest. And we're going to take our hands and we're reaching for the outsides of our feet or the insides of the feet, whichever is more comfortable for you. And if the feet aren't in reach, you can go for your ankles, your shins. You could also perhaps use straps if that's easier. With the bottoms of the feet pointing up to the sky, and our knees are dropping down toward our armpits. Torso is relaxing into the ground. This is a nice little opening stretch. If you want to make it a little bit of a massage for the low back, you can allow yourself to rock a little bit as well. And we'll bring that to stillness if you're rocking. Release the hold on the feet, let the arms wrap around the legs, bring the knees into the chest. And then we're going to release and stretch those legs out nice and long. Reach the arms overhead, a big full body stretch. And then I invite you to come into whatever position you'd like to be in for Shavasana. Just a couple of minutes. Anytime you do movement with the body in yoga, it's always good to take that final relaxation, just to let all the movement that you've done really settle into the body. So find a comfortable position. Perhaps you want to bolster under your knees. Perhaps you want a blanket over your body. Just relaxing, letting the body be heavy. Let those shoulders melt into the floor. Softening all the muscles in the face and loosening the jaw. And just finding the breath once again. Following the breath in and following the breath out. Allowing for the thoughts that want to creep in, recognizing them and then releasing them, and coming back to the breath again and again. And you're certainly welcome to stay in this Shavasana for as long as you'd like. But for our purposes today, for this mini flow, I'm going to bring us to a close. Thank you for joining me for this mini flow, for honoring yourself, your body, and your practice. Namaste.